Imagine wanting to transform your body through strength training, through lifting heavy weights, only to hear conflicting advice at every turn like lifting makes you bulky, or no, it actually makes you smaller. Meanwhile, you're left wondering, will I get the lean, toned look I want, or am I doomed to look like a bodybuilder? Assuming that's a bad thing. But in today's episode, we're cutting through the noise. We're exposing the truth about how lifting weights really affects a woman's body. You'll discover why the fear of getting bulky is misplaced and how heavy resistance training can actually help you achieve that coveted lean, sexy physique, even if there is an aspect of getting bigger, but not bulky. Whether you're a lifting novice, you're just getting started, or you are an advanced, intermediate to advanced trainee, this episode will reshape your understanding of the physical, how muscle metabolism and the female form all come together, and then you can embrace the iron with confidence and with purpose. Welcome to Wits and Weights, the show that blends evidence and engineering to help you build smart, efficient systems to achieve your dream physique. I'm your host, Philip Pape, and today we're tackling a very hot topic that comes up all the time. It's caused more confusion than almost any other: how lifting weights truly impacts a woman's body. Now, yes, I'm a man, but I've worked with many women, and I get asked this question all the time, particularly when I go on podcasts that are geared toward women audiences. And I think it's really important because we received yet another question from a listener about this, who I'm going to give a shout out to in just a bit. But before we dive in, I do have something special that I think is going to help you out, because part of the discussion today is around cardio and how cardio interacts with lifting weights. And so I created this guide for private clients called Cardio for Lifters, and I'm giving it to you for free as a podcast listener. In this guide, you'll discover how to effectively combine cardio and strength training, a weird trick to burn more calories through cardio, not what you think, not just doing more cardio, and a sample weekly training plan that balances the two for maximum results and recovery. So if you want the free copy of this Cardio for Lifters guide, join my email list. Go to witsandweights.com/email or click the link in the show notes. Again, that's witsandweights.com/email. Or click the link in the show notes. And then when you're on the list, just send me an email and say, hey, can I have the Cardio for Lifters guide? And I will send it right over. This is not publicly available. It's only for listeners. So you get the inside secret link here if you reach out, and I will send it over to you. All right, so let's get into today's topic, which was inspired by a listener, Valerie F. She is a longtime listener. Actually, I don't know how long she's been listening, but she's definitely been active in our community and reaching out, which I absolutely love hearing from listeners. And she inspired this episode. Valerie, like many of you listening, many of you women listening, has been bombarded with the conflicting information about lifting weights, strength training, body composition, health, all the things, not to mention diets and cardio and all of that. And she wrote the following quote that I think encompasses the confusion out there on this topic. She said, quote, basically, I need to focus on strength training and eating in a deficit, while also eating enough protein to lose fat, but also do a lot of intense cardio to keep my heart healthy and eat lots of fiber and vegetables and protein, but still be in a deficit, but also not be in an energy depleted state, because that's bad. But don't worry, because my muscles will get tighter, but also bigger when I weight train, end quote. And again, I think I love that part of the quote. She actually gave me a pretty detailed email of like, this expert says this expert says this. You have one person saying that cardio won't make you bulky, but you have like Steph Gaudreau, who was on the show, saying, well, it actually does make you bigger and we should embrace that. But like, what does it all mean and what does it look like? Like, what do you do, right? So let's start by tackling the big myth that usually gets asked is, does it make you bulky? That lifting weights makes women bulky. And this is a very outdated idea, but it still persists. And here's the truth. Women lack the testosterone levels necessary to build massive muscles anyway, without extreme effort and often some pharmaceutical assistance, right? Women start during puberty with, I'm not going to call it a disadvantage, it's just factually less muscle. And yet women can build the same percentage of muscle throughout their life. But they can't, the joke is like, I can't even get big and I try. I lift weights a lot and I've made a lot of strides, from my 30s to 40s when I did this right. And I'm a guy with decent testosterone levels. Yes, I've had it checked. And even I can't get big. So to even get afraid of being bulky from that context, it is kind of ridiculous. And I don't mean that as an insult. If you step back and think about it, you realize, oh yeah, actually that's kind of insane. But let's really get into it here. What actually happens when women lift heavy weights? What happens? They get stronger, right? Their muscles then do grow, absolutely. But this growth is nothing like what you see in a professional bodybuilder or even somebody who's fairly quote unquote large and bulky, like what you wouldn't normally see in a woman. Instead, it creates that coveted, toned look. Just look at the Olympics. I know the Olympics just happened as I recorded this. Not sure when you're listening to the episode. You look at the Olympics, you look at female athletes, and you see this wide spectrum. And those athletes who have a strength or muscle kind of focus, right? The types of sports that require being fitter from the body composition perspective. What do you see? You see strong, healthy, sometimes bigger, but not bigger in a negative way, athletes. Like they're powerful and capable, right? I mean, I think it's beautiful. It's sexy. It's all those things if we're going to go there, right? And that's just a combination of they built muscle and they lost fat. And we're talking about athletes. And let's be honest, if you're listening to this, most of you are probably not going to get to that elite athlete status, potentially. Some of you might be. But even if you're just, general population wanting to get a better physique, you don't have to worry about it. So there's another twist on this, right? And I've even used this terminology before. You might have heard that lifting then, it makes you physically smaller because muscles get tighter, right? Muscles denser than fat. So it actually is going to make you smaller. That's kind of a misunderstanding and a misinterpretation of how the whole thing works. Muscles themselves aren't changing. They're not getting tighter. You're actually building more muscle. And so your cross-sectional area of your muscles become bigger because you have this dense tissue and you have more of it, right? And they get more defined as they grow, and then you lose fat. And so you are going to probably have your shirt size go up, right? Your arm size go up, but your waist comes down. So like the proportions change a bit, but in a good way. Like muscular arms are beautiful arms, like men and women. If you look at them, it's usually not a problem, even when women have muscular arms. And yes, muscle takes up less space than fat for the same weight. So as you build muscle and lose fat, you might find that your weight on the scale doesn't change much if you're doing a body recomp and kind of staying the same weight, but your body composition improves dramatically. And so your shape is changing, and you are going to probably need clothes, not because you're getting huge or bulky, but because your shape is changing in all the right ways. You might need pants that allow for a bigger booty, for example, right? Or shoulders or arms, but like in a good way, not because you're bulky, because you're actually filling them out and you're not just like skinny fat. I hope none of this is triggering for any of you, because I am talking a lot about physical appearance here, but that is where the question comes from, doesn't it? Let's address another concern. The fear of eating too much when trying to build muscle. So that's part of the bulking fear of like actually getting fat, okay? And it is true, again, that to build muscle, you need to eat enough to support that growth. You can generally build muscle either in a surplus or sometimes at maintenance if you're a newer lifter, all right? It's very rare that you're going to build much muscle in a deficit, although it can happen, but it's just going to be slower, and that's not really the priority when you're in a deficit. It's more to lose fat. Now, when you are at maintenance or even in a slight surplus, it doesn't mean you're going to automatically gain a certain amount of fat, but you probably, the bigger that surplus is, are going to gain some of that as fat, okay? When you do it correctly, when you do it precisely, a slight calorie surplus. So for number's sake, I would say gaining around 0.2% to 0.3% of your body weight a week. And again, if you want to be conservative and be on the lower end, that's fine. 0.2% of your body weight a week. It's not that much if you do the math, right? It's at most a couple pounds a month for like an average size female. That combined with training properly, right? Progressive overload, progressing over time in the gym, going to the gym 3 or 4 days a week. That is going to lead to plenty of lean muscle gain with minimal fat accumulation. And by minimal, I mean maybe a third to a half of that is fat. And you're like, oh, so if I gain 10 pounds, up to 5 of that is fat? I don't think that's the way you should reframe it. I think you should frame it as, so if I gain 10 pounds, a full 5 of that is muscle. Holy crap, that's 5 pounds of muscle that I never had. And then I can easily drop whatever fat I gained in a cut, in a fat loss phase. Wow, 5 pounds of muscle is massive when most women are walking around losing muscle year after year at the age of 30, eventually leading to sarcopenia and also osteopenia, weakness, frailty, and ultimately death. And I hate to paint a negative picture. We all die someday, of course, but the chances are much higher when you don't have the muscle. So that's the health argument for muscle. Hey, this is Philip, and I hope you're enjoying this episode of Wits and Weights. I started Wits and Weights to help ambitious individuals in their 30s, 40s, and beyond who want to build muscle, lose fat, and finally look like they lift. I've noticed that when people transform their physique, they not only look and feel better, but they also experience incredible changes in their health, confidence, and overall quality of life. If you're listening to this podcast, I assume you want the same thing, to build your ultimate physique and unlock your full potential, whether you're just starting out or looking to take your progress to the next level. That's why I created Wits and Weights Physique University, a semi-private group coaching experience designed to help you achieve your best physique ever. With a personalized, done-for-you nutrition plan, custom-designed courses, new workout programs each month, live coaching calls, and a supportive community, you'll have access to everything you need to succeed. If you're ready to shatter your plateaus and transform your body and life, head over to witsandweights.com/physique or click the link in the show notes to enroll today. Again, that's witsandweights.com/physique. I can't wait to welcome you to the community and help you become the strongest, leanest, and healthiest version of yourself. Now back to the show. Now, for those of you in peri or postmenopause, you might have heard warnings about limiting calories in a deficit or a severe deficit causing something called REDS, relative energy deficiency in sport. In fact, Steph Gaudreau, when she was on the podcast, we talked quite a bit about that. I may have talked with, I'm not sure I talked with anyone else around about it, but it's a valid concern for sure. It exists. But for most of you listening, you're not going to be in that level of a calorie deficit and doing it for so long, like an elite athlete or bodybuilder, to have to worry about that, right? If, of course, you're crash dieting, and if you're dieting for a long, long time and you're doing it super aggressively, which is not the way we do it here, yes, you are at risk for that, right? And amenorrhea and all those things. But for most of you, it doesn't mean you can't be in a calorie deficit, right? The key is doing it at the proper rate of loss, a moderate deficit with the proper nutrient timing for you, right? The proper meal timing for you, where you're not doing all this crazy fasting, cutting carbs just to cut carbs, like all that stuff. Just have a balanced diet, go at a moderate rate of loss. That's not so fast that you lose muscle or lose too much energy. That lets you get in the gym. And you're not trying to hit a number on the scale. You're not trying to hit a target. You're trying to do something sustainable that slowly releases fat and helps you do it successfully, which most people can't do. Most people aren't doing that, right? So short, controlled periods of a calorie deficit interspersed with maintenance phases, right? Or even better yet, some building phases can help you lose fat while preserving muscle, preserving hormonal health. And you won't be anywhere near that REDS, that low energy availability state. So if you hear all these fitfluencers and, 22-year-old nutrition coaches saying like, you need to eat more to lose weight, you need to fix your metabolism, you're probably just under eating. I mean, there's a tiny bit of truth to the under eating part in some cases, but it's not magic. It's just a function of calories. That's all it is. Like, we just need to identify, okay, how much are you under eating by? What's your current maintenance? Do we need to be in maintenance for a while and clean things up and do things right and then get back into a deficit? It's those kinds of things. Let's be reasonable. Let's not be a fearmonger about this. Okay, so I've talked about quite a few things related to physique, with energy, to deficits, to health. I want to talk about another health aspect here related to cardio. Valerie's email mentioned cardio, and I was like, should I do another topic, a separate topic about this? But I think I want to cover this all in one kind of spot for women. Again, you're worried about getting bulky, which means you're probably in many cases overcorrecting by trying to stay thin and lean, quote unquote. I have quotes up here, by doing lots of cardio, by doing Pilates, by doing forms of movement you think are associated with lean muscles in some way. And it's a total myth. It really is. The only way you're going to get that lean toned look is to add muscle. And then you cut off a little bit of fat if needed. Okay. But let's talk about cardio where it fits in here, because Yeah, if you listen to experts, there's all sorts of recommendations. Some experts recommend the government health standards, which is something like 150 minutes of vigorous cardio per week, which honestly isn't a bad kind of average number for a lot of people to shoot for. That's 2.5 hours a week. And if you're lifting, say, 3 or 4 days a week for at least an hour, that 2.5 hours of cardio equates to about half the time that you lift, which is the recommendation I usually give. It's not out of the ordinary. It's not super high. It's not super low. It's kind of in the ballpark. Now, cardiovascular exercise in general is important, okay? But it doesn't have to be separate from your training, meaning like you don't have to do special medium and high intensity cardio sessions. Your strength training alone plus walking for many women, for many people is plenty, is actually enough. And if you want to incorporate some medium and high intensity cardio because you enjoy it and you want that little extra calorie burn and that little bit of extra heart health to go with it, I'm all for that. In fact, I do like a little bit of concurrent training in there once you get past that initial phase of like, hey, I'm just learning to get my protein. I'm just learning to lift weights. Once you get past that initial phase and things are kind of dialed in, then I would say, okay, now where do we fit in a couple sessions throughout the week, either on your off days from lifting or like many hours after your lifting sessions, and make sure that they're maybe not on leg day, but they're on your upper body day, like little tweaks like that. And I did mention the Cardio for Lifters guide early on. Again, I actually explain those in there. I explain the types of cardio, how to incorporate it with your lifting, how to balance it, and then a little trick that I like to use to get a little bit more calorie burn from your cardio. Okay. Just join my email list, witsandweights.com/email, and send me an email that you want the cardio guide and I will send it to you. All right. But if you are like juggling a family, your work, your training, meal planning, and the idea of, fitting in separate hours of cardio sessions on top of strength training can seem overwhelming, if not impossible, right? And this is where the efficiency comes in. I'm all for efficiency here. You can incorporate some conditioning into your strength training. So women, ladies, if you do like those boot camp classes, if you like the Pilates, if you like, spin, whatever, I'm not against having like supersets, a little bit of circuit training work, a little bit of just kind of what you would see in CrossFit, like box jumps or stuff like that, kind of thrown in, but they're second priority to the lifting, or they're incorporated as part of the lifting. So for example, you might do, your normal heavy squats, then you might do some leg presses, but then you're going to go ahead and do some calf raises and leg curls, and you're going to superset them. And because you're supersetting them and taking very little rest, your heart rate's going up right into zone 2, maybe zone 3. Right there, you're spending a good, 5 minutes, 10 minutes in like a medium, if not high intensity cardio state while lifting weights. Boom, you just got 2 for 1, right? You can get plenty of cardiovascular benefits just from lifting weights without having to double your gym time or do things that you don't enjoy doing. Okay, so the goal here isn't to do everything at maximum intensity all the time, right? We've talked about 80-20 in the past. Go look up my episode called The Pareto Principle is in the title, where you just have to do enough to get the minimum effective dose. And then that is the maximum use of your time where you can make progress without burning out. And then you can decide if you want to do more than that. And this probably does mean focusing primarily on strength training, because now you're not going to get bulky, that is the way to get the lean, bigger in a good way, lean and sexy physique that you're going for. Strategic cardio complements, right? Doesn't compete with your lifting. And that's the approach I would take when it comes to cardio. You don't have to be doing a bunch of treadmill work, a bunch of stair climbing work, right? Just walk, lift, and then incorporate cardio where it makes sense and make sure you enjoy it. I think there's one more thing that I kind of forgot to mention earlier about the calorie deficit for fat loss, because I was thinking of cardio and how many of you use cardio to try to increase your calories and help with fat loss. And that is not what cardio is for. Cardio is for heart health, and that's pretty much it. It burns a little bit more calories, but you don't want to overdo it. And so when we moderate the cardio and we focus on lifting and then use diet as the dial, right? Periodizing your diet, having proper fat loss phases, cycling your calories as needed, okay? This can allow you to get the result efficiently in a fairly short period of time. So let's say, 10 pounds over 12 or 16 weeks, and then you get back to maintenance for a while, and then you build a bunch of muscle, and then you do another fat loss phase. I've talked about this in the past with my stair-step fat loss approach. Approaches like that I do with clients all the time, right? We roll up the sleeves and we say, what's the most creative way to structure your diet, your lifting, your cardio, so it's fun, so it's sustainable, so you can go out and have fun on the weekends, and you don't really feel like you're dieting like you used to. And then what do you get for it? You get a physique that your dream physique, your ideal physique that you're going for here. Not bulky, but lean, toned, sexy, all of those things. Let's talk about, this is the last thing I'm going to talk about here, a concept that gets overlooked in all of this. All right. The very act of building muscle can make fat loss easier. It makes fat loss easier in the long run, right? Muscle tissue is the most metabolically active tissue. That means it burns more calories at rest than fat does. Fat does have some burning, but not nearly as much as muscle. And so by focusing on building muscle through heavy lifting, you are upgrading your body's engine, your metabolic engine. You're making it more efficient at burning calories. And here's the thing that people miss. You can carry more scale weight, so you can be bigger, but leaner. And because you're bigger, you're burning even more calories, and you get to eat more food. Who doesn't want that? So this is why focusing on strength training rather than cutting calories, endless cardio, high rep, high cardio type workouts can often be the game changer for women looking to transform their bodies, and why you should not be afraid one iota about lifting weights. One iota. You are improving everything about your life, your health, your function, your capability, your metabolism. There is absolutely zero downside to building muscle. One of the most powerful things you can do for your body. So as we wrap up, I want to recap some key points here. Number one, lifting weights will not make women bulky. It will not make you bulky. That's it. It'll make you leaner, stronger, and yes, sexier. Maybe that last one's a subjective thing, but I'm a guy, so I can say that. Number two, muscle growth and fat loss work together to create the toned look. You've got to spend some time building muscle, but then occasionally you focus on fat loss. Number three, balancing that nutrition with your training is key here, right? But it doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, it should work with you and your lifestyle and preferences. Number four, cardio is important, but it can be efficiently incorporated and prioritized below your strength training. And then number five, building muscle is the best thing you could do. It is a powerful strategy for long-term fat loss, for metabolic health, for everything. So I hope the message was clear. The goal isn't to conform here to some idea of a perfect body, right? But it is to dispel the myth that women are going to get bulky. And instead, when you lift weights, when you focus on muscle, you will become the strongest, healthiest version of yourself. As long as you're fueling it properly, you progress and you track the right things, right? You do the right things. You do what we talk about on this podcast. You reach out for help when needed, because that's sometimes the best way to accelerate your results. And you watch as you transform, and it won't take that long. But you're going to transform not only physically, but with your confidence and your capability and your ability to show up for yourself and for others. All right. If you enjoyed today's episode, if you want to learn more about really everything, but specifically what I mentioned today, if you want to balance cardio and training, because that's sometimes where the big question mark is, don't forget to grab your free copy of my Cardio for a Lifter's Guide. Go to witsandweights.com/email or click the link in the show notes to join my email list. Then when you're on there, reply and say, hey, Philip, I would love the Cardio for Lifters Guide. By the way, what else do you have? And I'll be happy to send you all my free stuff. Until next time, keep using your wits, lifting those weights, and remember, your body is capable of amazing things when you give it the right muscle building stimulus. This is Philip Pape, and you've been listening to the Wits and Weights podcast. Talk to you next time.